Hello, everyone, and welcome to Teach, Technology Education Among Confident Humans, where we learn from each other to make the best use of our technology. This is Ben Rosenthal at Sustainable Computing. I coach Mac users in Berkeley and beyond, but I think you all already know that. Generally, I help people one-on-one, answering questions, sharing insight, and helping erase frustration. Just want to let you know the session is being recorded and I'll post it to my YouTube channel later today. So we've gathered today to talk about maximizing battery life on Mac and on iPhone. I'm excited to share some tips to help you get the most out of your Apple devices. But first, I want to just send you into breakout rooms, just with one or two others, to introduce yourself and share what you're interested in learning or teaching today. Well, welcome back, everyone. I'd love to hear from a few of you. Feel free to turn on your mic and share your name, where you're calling from, and one thing you learned or shared or that inspired you.
Well, I learned that you can actually replace your battery. I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Nice, Bruce.
Thanks to Dee. She just told us all about it.
Amazing.
You're helping her too.
I learned that Ben has a dad and that he's on the
Great.
call. Yeah.
Cool. Parents are amazing.
Yeah.
I learned that there were two Bruces on the call.
Oh.
Cool.
She also has a mother who's also on the call.
Excellent. Anyone else? Any other insights? All right, well, we'll get started then with the discussion. So it's good. You've already covered the last thing on my list, battery replacement. And certainly I can start with that just briefly. Batteries don't last forever. Rechargeable batteries do not last forever. And I want to talk a little bit about how you can identify the health of your battery on each of your devices. But certainly you have the option of having a battery replaced. And you can, if you're in the Bay Area, I can refer you to places to replace your Mac or iPhone battery. And if you're not in the area, I can try to help you find a place wherever you are. Certainly, if your battery is if your iPhone battery is more than a few years old, and you use your iPhone a lot, then you may be getting on toward the end of its lifespan. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. I think the really crucial thing is to recognize that as powerful as our devices are, particularly our mobile devices, the battery is a very key component of ensuring that they continue to perform. And a battery that is near the end of its lifespan will not only cause a phone, for example, to not last as long on a charge, but it might also cause the phone to not perform as well. And so you might have heard the news a couple of years ago when Apple was hit with various class action lawsuits related to rechargeable batteries in iPhones, because Apple was not telling people that it was reducing the performance of iPhones whose batteries were near depleted. And so that ended up leading to some wider battery replacement options, as well as some settings to let the user decide whether that performance decrease is permitted. So, and we can discuss that in more depth if you're curious. So let's start talking about, well, one, how are these batteries measured and how is the lifespan of a battery measured? And the core of it is a charge cycle. And it's difficult to explain sometimes, but if you think about if your battery is depleted by 1% of its capacity and then charged by 1% of its capacity, that equates to 1% of one cycle. So it's been since the days of nickel cadmium batteries when we were once instructed to fully discharge a battery before recharging it. Modern batteries that most of us are using in our mobile devices do not need to be fully discharged before they are recharged. And it comes down to however you break up your usage and your recharging of your device. When you get to 100% of discharge and 100% of recharge, you have amounted to one charge cycle. So if you, for example, on your Mac, go to your Apple menu, hold the Option key on your keyboard and choose System Information. And then look at Power on the sidebar. If you're on a laptop, then you'll see cycle count under Health Information. And that's the number of charge cycles on your battery currently. Most modern Mac laptop batteries are rated for 1,000 charge cycles before they are considered depleted, and it's time to replace them if you're not replacing the whole computer.
Ben, could you go back through those steps again to get to that?
I couldn't find it either, going into the Black Apple. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Phyllis,
So-
you're not going to see it because you're on a desktop.
Ah.
And your computer doesn't have a battery.
Okay.
Okay,
Those of us who are on laptops, go to the Apple menu,
got
hold
it.
the Option key on the keyboard, choose System Information.
And I have a question then for you. So I'm in that.
Yes.
So it says health information cycle count.
Yep.
Mine is 295. It's pretty low then. Yeah.
295 is quite good. Out of 1,000, you should have
Okay.
plenty of battery left before it's depleted.
Okay. As opposed to my iPhone, which is not so good.
Right. And I will share in a moment how to get the battery cycle count on your iPhone. So, and I'll do that right now. Well, this won't be relevant for most of you because you can't get this information directly on your phone. But I'm going to demonstrate how to do it with a particular utility, which I have written about before. So if, let's see, let's, this and then do this and say this. So there's a great little app called Coconut Battery. Looks like this. And it will show you the battery capacity and health of your Mac battery, assuming your Mac has a battery. And if you connect your iPhone to your Mac, then you can click iOS device and it will show the same kind of information about your iPhone. And among other things, I can see that I have 100, which I got in October, November. So my iPhone isn't too old. If your iPhone is 2 years old and you see that your cycle count is up at like 400, I think iPhone batteries have a maximum count of around 500 cycles. I could be wrong about that. But if you're finding that your capacity on your phone, the duration that it lasts is not very long, then those two might match up for you. And the other thing that you can do on your phone is you can go to settings and battery, and then battery health. And you can see what the current maximum capacity of your iPhone battery is. And if it is lower than 90%, then you're probably starting to notice some shorter durations on your charge. And your iPhone battery is expected to be depleted when it gets down to about 80%. So if you're getting down in the 80s, then that's likely a time to replace. Yes, Lisa.
I think mine is at 74, so obviously I'm
So,
past due.
Yeah, you're past battery. I would suggest with Joe iPhone unlock and repair services.
Yeah, I just saw that online. I was
and,
just looking it up. Okay, that's
He
good
is
to
the
know.
best in the area.
Oh yeah, oh good. Okay.
Yeah.
If you'll excuse me a second, Ben, I ran and got my laptop when you said it wasn't available on my desktop.
Mhm. Yep.
Would it be possible for you? I'm in system information. Where will I find that information now on the laptop?
Power.
Under power. All right. And then
Cycle count under health information.
cycle count, health information, battery, health. Oh, here. Okay, cycle count is 161. What is the
Okay.
range?
You have up to 1,000.
Oh, up to 1,000. Oh, okay. I'm fine with that then.
I
That's
think you're
good to
fine
know.
where you are right now.
Okay. As far as the phone goes, this is my second replacement battery already. I got the
Mhm.
first one when they had the recall, and then
Mhm.
I had a lot of trouble with that one. I think they gave me a bad one actually. And so I ended up going back a year later and I got another one, but I'm down to 89 already.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and this is about 3 years. So I probably should replace the phone instead of just the battery the next time.
Possibly, yeah.
So,
I mean,
okay.
I certainly had my iPhone SE battery replaced 3 times before I replaced the phone.
Okay. Well,
And
I'm
I was
down
a
to
pretty heavy
6
user.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not.
Ben,
Yes.
which place on the phone is where we're supposed to go to check our battery? Under
That-
battery?
Settings,
Oh, settings.
battery health.
Oh, yeah, got it. Thank you.
Mhm. So also in battery health, you probably see optimized battery charging.
Mhm.
And it literally says to reduce battery aging, iPhone learns from your daily charging routine, so it can wait to finish charging past 80% until you need to use it. Now that's, it's a little rough, and I find that I mean, I suppose if you regularly charge your phone overnight when you're sleeping, then probably what's happening when you're not looking because you're sleeping is that your phone is getting charged to 80% and holding there until an hour or two before you get up. And then it's going to finish the charge so that it gets to 100% around the time that you're likely to unplug it from power.
Why wouldn't it do it just until it's done and then just let it sit overnight?
Because it's difficult for some reason, I don't know why this is, it's difficult for the phone to stop charging the battery when it is at 100%, and also maintain that level. But
Oh.
perhaps the deeper issue is it's not healthy for the battery to be held at 100%.
Okay,
It is actually healthier for these lithium batteries to be held somewhere between 20 and 80%.
okay, thank you.
So what you'll find, if you're on a MacBook from roughly 2016 or later, there's an optimized battery charging option in macOS Big Sur, which has a similar intention. And I'm experiencing it right now. My battery is holding at 87%, and the external power of my computer is simply keeping my computer powered without charging the battery. Again, for the purpose of not wearing out the battery by holding it too high.
And
Good.
I keep my laptop in the kitchen plugged in all the time. So it's almost always at 100. Then if we want to move it and use it somewhere else, we're starting from 100 for a Zoom meeting or something of that sort. Is that bad for the health of the laptop?
Possibly. It's possible that your battery will not last as many years, or it may not last until 1,000 cycles. I have not really concluded one way or another, but I think that is what people are finding. It is a good idea to use your computer on battery some of the time.
Okay, so I should unplug it periodically. Should I let it run down?
You don't, again, it's not the type of battery that you have to let run down too much, but it is a good idea to use on battery some.
Okay,
So maybe, maybe if you're keeping it in the kitchen, using it periodically while you're there, that's a place where you use it on battery.
all right.
And when you're taking it away to use it on a Zoom meeting, that's when you're definitely plugging it in.
Oh, okay,
But,
thank you.
it's an experiment. Sargina, did you have your hand up?
I do what you had described. I have it plugged in overnight, and then when I get up, I unplug it, but it shows that I'm at 100%. Is that? And I have the setting
Optimized battery charging.
optimized battery. Yeah. Does that make sense, or is it just?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not saying that. So if optimized battery charging is working the way it's supposed to, and I think it will work better after we upgrade your Mac to Big Sur.
Well, this is my phone. I'm speaking of.
Oh.
I'm speaking of the phone.
Yeah. The idea is that the phone finishes charging the battery to 100% around the time that it expects that you're likely to want to use it.
I see. Okay.
So if you're charging it overnight, it's charging to 80% right away, and then charging the rest of the way shortly before you're going to use it.
Got it. Okay. I missed that part. Thank you.
David had a question in the chat, Ben.
Yes, David. Can you tell us where you are? Is your audio working? Okay. So did you got to system information? did you get to the system information app? Okay, you're there and you're in power, and under health information is cycle count. 112. Okay. I'm sorry, David, that your microphone isn't working right now. Can you maybe switch to a different microphone? I assume you have choices of the one in your display and the one in your computer. Okay. All right, so we'll just move on. So let's get into talking about how we reduce our battery usage. So I'd say one of the top suggestions on iPhone relates to background app refresh. There's this capability of the apps on your phone to check for updates when you are not actively using each given app. And some people will tell you, just turn off background app refresh and you'll save battery. And it's true, but my opinion is it's a good idea to review the apps that you use that are capable of checking for updates in the background and decide which ones you actually benefit from doing so. So you can, I'm going to share this because I can. So I'm going to go to settings, general, background app refresh. And the setting generally is on, but I've reviewed the apps that I use to decide which ones should, to my benefit, refresh themselves in the background to ensure that they consistently work or have the information in them that I want them to have the next time I open them. So, you know, there are, yes.
Since all of mine are turned on, is that a problem? I mean, I see some of yours are turned off, so.
Correct. So the default is that everything is turned on. So to turn it around, identify the apps that you don't need checking for updates in the background and turn them off.
Why?
Because if they do check for updates in the background, then them doing so is using power. So
Question about that.
Yes.
So if you do turn an app off, so it doesn't automatically update. So when you go to the app,
Then it updates.
It updates. Okay.
It updates
What's
when
the
you're in the
benefit
app,
of
but not when
having
you're
that
not in the
on?
app.
Right. So what's the benefit of always having those on?
So for example, I have the app To Do turned on for background app refresh. To Do is my to-do list, which I manage on other devices as well. I want To Do checking for updates to its database in the background so that my phone does not remind me of things that I already marked completed on another device.
Okay.
And
Yes.
Is there a way to turn them all off and then selectively turn the few on that I want? I tried to turn it
think
off
so.
and everything. So I have to go through each one.
One by
There's a lot.
one. There's a
Okay.
lot, and I have a lot of apps too, and I think it's worthwhile to make that intentional choice.
And I'm not quite sure what this is in the background. Now, something like Waze, when we travel, that would be a background one that I would want to keep on.
Yes.
Even now, it's
probably
only
is-
if I'm bringing it up and using it. It's not going to do anything or drain the battery if it's not been opened, will it?
I think Waze has the ability to, I think generally navigation apps offer the ability to run on the lock screen, you know, so that even when the phone goes to sleep, it's not totally sleeping because it's still helping you navigate. So that Waze is an app that must have background app refresh turned on, I believe. I don't think the Waze app is holding your phone unlocked while it's navigating.
I can't, okay, something like Waze where it's not the open one, but I would imagine that if you haven't opened the app, that it won't matter whether it's updating in the background. I mean, when I'm traveling, I open up Waze, but then other things come up in front, but I want to keep track of Waze.
Mhm.
But so all these others, for the most part, I should probably close everything and just, I mean, there are probably very few.
You could certainly choose to turn off most of the apps and see how your experience is with your phone and see if it works for you to have those apps not checking for things in the background, and maybe that will be fine. And then maybe you'll discover an app that has not been notifying you of anything in a while because you haven't opened it. And then you'll open it and see how much you missed since the last time it was open. And then you might end up deciding that you want that app checking in the background.
Now I get news blurbs.
Mhm.
I would want to keep that open if I want to keep getting things of that sort. Because if I close that, those are background
Correct.
notifications. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I
Yep.
think.
So when it's
yes.
real quick, so if it's like a ride hailing type app, and of course I'm not using those or haven't been the last year, but when the time comes, should that be something that stays on?
Probably because, you know, some of the communication will push to the app, which was recently open and is still in memory. Some of the notifications will be sent through text message, perhaps, which you can't prevent from checking in the background. But yeah, it's possible that there are some types of activity that for that kind of app, you need background app refresh turned on.
Okay.
Again, that's something that you may just have to experiment with if you're curious.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So a little while ago when we were looking at your screen, David, you had battery preferences open on your Mac. If you are in Big Mac OS Big Sur, then you have a preference pane called battery. And if you're on previous systems, then it's called energy saver. And assuming again, you're on a laptop, which has a battery, trying to remember what I wanted to talk about here. This pane has always had a handful of settings that you can set. For example, how long until your display turns off. And on a laptop, you can choose different settings for when you're on battery or when you're connected to power. So, you know, I would say it depends on your usage. I have my display turn off after about 5 minutes when I'm connected to power, and after 2 minutes when I'm on battery. It's rare that I am staring at the screen, not moving the cursor for more than 5 minutes ever. So most likely I've walked away from the computer and having it turn off the display is a savings of energy, and that works for me. Now you can, when you're on power adapter, you have the option of preventing the computer from going to sleep when the display turns off, if that's useful. Certainly on these modern computers, they wake up so fast from sleep that may not make much of a difference anymore. But if for whatever reason your computer takes a little longer to wake from sleep, then that setting might be of value, that you just put the computer to sleep either after a certain length of time or manually, and that works for you.
I have a question. So I'm looking at my MacBook setting.
Mhm.
And so I see there's system sleep, disk sleep, display sleep. Can you explain a little bit about what the difference is between those three?
Yes, so system sleep is the whole computer. Disk sleep is a largely unnecessary and sometimes problematic setting currently, because it's actually sometimes incompatible with some storage drives. But on older hard disks, it was valuable for simply causing them to enter a state of rest so that they weren't constantly spinning, which was an energy hog. And then display sleep is the screen, just the screen and nothing else. So there's no reason for your screen to stay on when you're not sitting in front of the computer, in most cases. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Great. On iPhone, in your battery settings, you also have access to low power mode, which turns off a lot of background activity, a lot of background app refresh in general, and a number of other things that use a fair amount of battery in the background. When you're using the phone, it might also reduce the brightness a little bit. Your phone will offer you low power mode if your battery gets down to 20% or down to 10%. And it's if you're on a device that has very restricted battery capacity, like your phone, Lisa, then you're probably spending a lot of the time in low power mode. And you don't have to go into settings to turn low power mode on and off, as I will show you now. Instead, you can put it in Control Center. So in Settings, Control Center, which is under General, you can add low power mode to the included controls. So I can certainly pull mine out and come down here to more controls, and there's low power mode, and I can drag it into the position I want it. And then when I go to Control Center, on phones with Face ID, swipe down from the top right corner. On phones with a home button, swipe up from the bottom of the screen. And here's low power mode on the right side where I just added it. I can turn it on and I can turn it off.
How did you add it to your?
Go to settings.
Oh, okay.
Go to Control Center.
Yeah, I'm in the control center. Okay.
Under More Controls, look for Low Power Mode.
Under more controls.
Yes. Scroll down to More Controls. Do you see Low Power Mode?
Yes.
Okay, tap the plus.
Tap the plus. I tapped the plus and it went away.
It gets added to the included controls above. You
Oh,
can now drag the thumb if you wish to put it in the order that you want it in among the other controls.
oh, okay. I see it now. Thank you.
And then when you go to Control Center, you'll see it in that position.
Okay.
As long as we're talking about accessing internet services as an energy usage issue, there's an app on the Mac called Trip Mode that you can use to, assuming you're using your computer on battery, most likely in a place other than home where you're on some other wireless network. Trip Mode can restrict certain applications or specifically allow certain applications to access the internet when you're on a given wireless network. So it's a cute little app that's designed for people who travel, who need to use their laptops on battery when they're away from home, and want to reduce the apps that are using that internet connection, which I think is even more relevant to people who are using their personal hotspot on their phone as their internet connection and trying to reduce their cellular data usage. So there's some complexity to demonstrating how Trip Mode works or showing you how to set it up. So I'm not going to take time to do that right now. But if you're going somewhere sometime soon, then congratulations getting out of the house, and let me know if you're curious to set that up. That's all I've prepared to share today, but I'm opening the floor for questions on this topic, and we'll open more broadly in a little while.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are you getting any information about upgrading battery quality as the next generation of Apple products comes out, or do you know anything about it?
It's a good question. So in the Mac world, MacBooks, the new Mac M1 MacBooks that came out in November have tremendous increases in battery life, where the Macs that came before them were lasting maybe 8 to 10 hours on a charge. The newest ones are up to 15 to 17 hours. By Apple putting its own silicon into the computer and truly integrating the system components, they've seen tremendous efficiency boosts. Very similar to the 10 hours that you might get on an iPad, for example, because there's essentially an iPad CPU in the computer.
Okay.
In terms of iPhones, maybe less so. I think that Apple is continuing to follow a trend of eking more performance out of newer devices as it continues to advance the processors that it puts inside while maintaining the same battery life. So the efficiency is increasing, but for the sake of performance rather than for the sake of battery duration.
Okay, Thanks.
And
Hi, I apologize for coming in late. I typically have my laptop in clamshell mode with a separate monitor
Right.
and move it for Zoom things in another room where I usually plug it back in because Zoom sucks up so much battery.
Right.
So I very rarely use it just on battery. Should I be? In other words,
Possibly. What, what is your battery health on that computer right now?
on this computer right now, hold on just a sec.
I would say on one of my computers where I had the battery replaced about 1.5 to 2 years ago, it was about 6 years old. No, it was about 5 years old when I had the battery replaced. I had not reached probably even close to 1,000 cycles, and it was mostly because I had kept it plugged in all the time.
I'm not sure where I'm looking here.
So go to the Apple menu.
Yeah, I've got the Apple menu and I've got it to the overview system report.
Okay, good. So then look at power.
Power, that's what I missed. Thank you.
And then look for cycle count
full
under health information.
Cycle count 54.
54. So, and how long have you had your computer?
Got it sometime mid last year, I think.
Okay, so 9 months, 54. Your cycle count might be a little bit low given the age of your computer, but it makes sense given how you've used it. And it might be reasonable to assume that if you continue to use it in this way, like me, you will not reach your 1,000 cycles before your battery is not working as well anymore. I would guess.
Okay.
And it should be fine for at least several years, but that's just something to be aware of when you're getting into those years.
But
Then-
using it on battery power periodically is good for it.
Is a good idea. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
Phyllis.
Very simply, I remember, and I had printed it out at one time and I followed it, of going to a point for the battery health to actually let it drain and shut off by being drained and then charging it from that state. And it was supposed to aid the health of it. Is that from an old technology that I've kept going, or is that still applicable?
That is mostly old wisdom that was relevant maybe around 10 or 12 years ago. And it comes back periodically for very specific devices, but maybe more likely for the ones that are actually that old and have new batteries in them. But for the most part, on any modern device from Apple, the battery is pre-calibrated and does not need to be calibrated in that way. The process that you just described, which is to fully deplete a battery until the device shuts off and then recharge it to full, and sometimes even leaving it plugged in for some number of hours before the initial depletion, is designed to train the device as to what the true capacity of the battery is. For the most part, that's not necessary anymore.
Okay, you said something like 10 years old. I have no idea if this is a 6S. would that apply at all to the phone?
Your 6S is from fall 2015.
Okay.
I don't think that wisdom generally applies to iPhones.
Oh,
Or
okay, so
at least
even
any
his
iPhone that most people are using these days.
5S?
Yeah, I don't think that is very relevant wisdom anymore.
Okay, okay. Then I'll forget it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll keep it in mind for certain individuals who might need it. Yes, Bruce.
Yes, Ben. So when I was looking under battery on the iPhone, under battery usage by app,
Huh?
so the first
Great place to
listing,
look. Let's send everyone there so we can review.
Okay.
So settings, battery, wait for it to load, and then scroll down. Carry on.
so the first one, the activity is 45%.
Okay, and what's the app?
That is exposure notifications. That's the app for COVID notifications.
Wow.
So that's far more than phone, mail, anything else. So is 45%.
That sounds really high.
Yeah, I turned that one off because it just sucked my battery dry every day.
Interesting. I wonder why that's so high. That's something worth asking the internet about.
The Google machine?
Yes, the Google machine. Because lots of people have
I had
searched
heard that
for,
from several people.
exposure notifications, iPhone battery. And people are seeing massive battery drain in iOS 14 related to exposure notifications. And the top recommendations, and I would say the top recommendation is the one that I would say do. Have you tried restarting your phone?
I have not recently. I probably restarted it since I downloaded this app a few months ago, but I could try that.
So exposure notifications is not an app. It is, or it's not a separate app. It is a function of your phone.
Okay.
You'll see it in settings.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly you could just turn off exposure notifications if you wanted to, but I think they have some purpose. But that's a really good question to get more information about.
So in general, if it wasn't that one in particular, is there, so the next one on battery usage is phone, 30%. Is there some sort of benchmark? If something's using more than X, then that's considered a battery drain? Or does it depend just on how you use the phone and how important
It
that
kind of
function
depends
is?
on how you use the phone and how you use the apps on it. And it may be a different story for different apps. Phone is going to be high if you're talking on the phone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, a game you play frequently is going to be high, perhaps. Or mail is going to be high if you spend a lot of time sending and receiving email using your phone. So, we could also draw this conversation into, well, which apps do you use on your phone and which apps do you use on your Mac? How do you decide whether to use which device?
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation, I was when I got my iPad in 2010, the first one, I got into what turned out to be a bad habit of using my iPad to browse my email. And it was a really inefficient experience, just because it was kind of tedious to use the iPad mail interface to browse and read and send email. And several years later, I switched to almost exclusively using my Mac for email because it was a lot faster in terms of the interface and also just to type compared to the iPad. So, I type well, and keyboard shortcuts are a lot easier to use on the Mac than they are on an iPad, even with a connected keyboard. And so that became my new efficiency practice.
Ben,
Yes.
my exposure notifications is active,
Mhm.
but it's only drawing 4%.
Great. I don't know why you're experiencing a difference from each other. Again, I would start by trying to restart the device and monitor it for a couple of days and see if you experience something different. There could be some process, you know, overrunning the system in the background that just needs to be restarted. And the only way to do so is to restart the device.
And I have also the exposure notification. Mine's at 8%. Could it be how much we're going out and interacting with other people's iPhones? Because this is
That's a
cross
good point.
communication. I spend
That's
most of my time
correct.
indoors, basically,
Mhm.
so it may not have that much
That is a
interaction
good
where,
point.
I don't know about you, Bruce, whether yours is
Mhm.
out. If you're out and about, you might be running into a lot of people who have the same settings.
Yeah, not out and about. I don't know. And if Bonnie having her iPhone in the same condo is gonna, if it's picking up that signal and.
Right.
But are the notifications, the exposure notifications, Ben, is that a national program or is that set up by local governments? Could the setup something be different?
Yeah, it's a combination. It is a function of the device offered by, in this case, Apple, and you know, a collaboration between Apple and other device makers. But yeah, it works in conjunction with these local or regional programs,
Okay.
health services.
I'll try restarting. I just wondered if it could
Okay.
be the local governments have different sorts
Yeah.
of things set up that could cause more activity on one community than
know.
another.
And also in seeing this other group of the percentages, which I hadn't seen before, going down through that battery section, could this be utilized to decide which ones I want to have run in the background? By seeing
Absolutely.
if it's not having any impact on my activity, it
Mhm.
probably doesn't have any impact on the battery. So
That's a
even though
good
it's
point.
set on,
Right.
so, but looking at this would tell me whether I want it or not,
Good point.
or possibly. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a control center where we turned it on and off. No,
No, that was in background app refresh in general.
it has its own.
General is next to control center.
Oh, it's in general. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Background. I see it. Okay, thank you. So
Yes.
that will tell me which ones are draining or not draining, as the case may be.
Correct.
All right. And this is where, in this particular case, if note being contacted, that's something we would want to have notifications on at all times if you want to
Right.
use it.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Okay.
Other questions on batteries?
I have a question. So I think maybe the answer is no, because it seems like there's a lot of variables, but are there any sort of general best practices that we can extrapolate from what you've been talking about, like, you know, plugging in or not plugging in, or these settings and such, or does it depend too much on what you're doing and with your device?
Yeah, it really depends on what you're doing. If we're talking about an iPhone, your iPhone is designed to be used on battery most of the time and to be recharged when the battery gets low. And I have heard that it's not a good idea to leave the iPhone plugged into power most of the time when you are using it. You know, the experience of using the iPhone on battery versus the experience of using the Mac on battery are very different from each other because the iPhone battery is designed to satisfy the performance requirements of the phone when you're using it, whereas the Mac will actually perform a little bit less when it's running on battery in order to conserve power. Whereas when you have the computer plugged into power, its performance has the ability to increase in comparison. You may also find, unless you have the setting turned off, in system preferences, you may find that when you disconnect your laptop from power, the screen brightness will dim a little bit. Again, to conserve power, because the screen is one of the largest energy users of the computer.
Ben,
Yes.
I have both Apple and non-Apple charging
No.
cables. Yes, yes, I confess, I confess. Most of the time it's not a problem, but I had one once that after it started charging and it got to 100, it kept beeping.
Yeah.
So in fact, I was using that at overnight charging and it woke us up. So I had to disconnect it. And I was told, I did a little research then, that at least the good wires and the Apple wires, actually, when they reach 100, they do something that shuts off the charging of it. That even it's at 100, so it just kind of is sitting there, as opposed to some second, company models that just keep trying to charge it.
Correct.
If it doesn't beep, are these other cables acceptable, or are they damaging in any way?
I mean,
prices are
again,
significant.
The prices are significant. So a couple of things on that. One, the beeping is not necessarily related to the well, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but one way or another, some cables are certified and have an extra chip in them that prevents them from trying to overcharge a device, and enables them to trickle charge in that way that the Apple ones certainly do properly. So it is possible that some of those third-party cables may damage a device, and you shouldn't use them. Hopefully, there are fewer of those on the market than there were before, because people like you have had that issue. As far as cost is concerned, well, I think one thing is I take really good care of my charging cables. And I try really hard not to trip over them and not to let them get too tangled, and have them in the places where I want to be using them most of the time, so that I don't have to move them around much. So that's certainly one way to lower the cost of charging cables, by not having to buy them as often. Two, I often buy my charging cables from OWC, because they usually have good deals on Apple cables. I think you can often find a lightning to USB cable that might retail for 19 bucks at Apple for closer to 10 bucks from OWC. They usually sell them in a bulk package that isn't the retail package, so it's less expensive to sell. Yeah.
But they are Apple brand.
But they are Apple brand cables that work as well as you would expect an Apple brand cable to work, because that's what they are.
Now, is there much of a difference between well, there we go. There we go. This portion of it, which in this particular case is not an Apple, and
Okay.
the cable itself.
I'm not sure. It's possible. There might be a difference.
And you buy
That's
those
why
Apple
it's-
also? You even all the
Um,
accessories?
No, not exclusively. Again, there are reputable companies that sell their own charging adapters and cables for Apple products that work just as well as the Apple variants do, and they are trustworthy. So, Anchor is one brand, for example, that is well known for making high quality charging accessories.
Is that ANK?
ER.
Yeah, I thought so. I've
Yes.
seen it. I may have that
Um,
actually.
And yeah, they are one of the top reviewed makers of that product.
Thank you.
Yes.
When you mentioned, Ben, not having the cables tangled, do you have a device that you use other than rubber bands to avoid tangled cables?
I do not have a device. I have two long-time habits. I'll pull out this one as an example. So I will never do this with an audio cable because they work differently, but I will usually fold the cable once or twice so that it is about this size, and then I will twist and pull through and store it like so.
Mm-hmm.
More likely to get tangled are my headphone cables.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I have this method that I've been using for over a decade to keep them from being tangled. I palm the headphones,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wrap around my palm 4 or 5 times. And then I have this bundle, which I twist, and then I wrap the remaining cable around. Depending on the headphone, it may be 5 to 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take the end and I put it through the hole and they stay.
So is there a device just to shorten the cord? So if the cord's this long and you have it plugged into the wall on your desk and you only need
Yes.
this much of it?
Yes, there are such devices. There are a number of options depending on the type of cable we're talking about that can hold that excess cable between the device and the wall. And I can perhaps share those in an upcoming edition of Mac, and also connect with you offline to share some of those options.
Okay. Well, hopefully our questions today have given you plenty of content for Mac Mondays for the next month or so.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So, I'll open up generally for open discussion about anything at all in a moment. But I just wanted to say, after this gathering, besides other gatherings of this type, the best way to stay in touch with me is to subscribe to my newsletter. Once a week, I think, as most of you know, I publish Mac Mondays and occasionally Tech Tuesdays, featuring news, tips, and short tutorials. This often includes what I'm discussing with clients, app recommendations, insight about how to choose new hardware, ways to increase efficiency, and so forth. As the Mac world continues to evolve, I've found there's no shortage of content to write about. But as always, and as today, I welcome your input and suggestions as well.
This Tech Tuesday, have I missed the mail, or do you have to subscribe to that separately? Because I don't remember seeing anything.
There have been 2 or 3 of them in the last 3 years.
In the last 3 years.
Because for
Okay,
one reason or another, I failed to publish on Mac Mondays.
got it. Okay,
And so I needed a different name.
I see.
Um,
Okay,
For support requests, it's best to email me, but you can also call or text. And I'd also love your feedback about today's session. So I'll put some links in the chat about all these ways to connect with me. I'm happy to hear your feedback or open discussion for questions or hear anything else you want to share about today.
Thank you.
This was good.
You're welcome.
This was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thanks, Ben. Nice to meet you, Mr. Rosenthal. You have an amazing son.
Well, thank you.
He's
Thank
been
you.
our savior for quite a few years now.
Good. Got that, Ben, for your
We're
website?
so grateful.
Mhm.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks to everybody for their questions, because many of you asked questions that I never thought of asking, but they were all good questions and I learned from them.
Excellent.
My
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
and I had some questions and they all just disappeared into my lack of battery. I guess my battery ran out or something. So I'll have to deal with you directly when the time comes.
Make a list.
I should. That I decided I've got this book now. So this is my teach book.
Nice.
So I will
Excellent.
keep just little notes in here. So now I've got 2. Was photos your first one?
Photos was the first,
Second one.
second one.
What was the first one? And did you tape it? Because
I did not record the first one. It was about iPhone storage.
oh, okay. I guess.
Did
I
you
could do it.
record the photos one?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
it's
on
on
my
there.
YouTube channel and it's on my website.
Oh, I
Okay,
think it'll
great,
stay-
thanks.
Will that stay there for a while if I want to go back and review? It's not.
You
Any
can go to
time
the
to-
teach page and the archive is there.
Okay. Okay. I do have lots of questions and always thinking of something, but I really can't think of anything now. So I will make notes.
Okay.
And the next time
Great.
I'm on, I'll do that. Be well. I will say adieu and I will take off now. Take care, Ben.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye, Ben.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Ben.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yep.
See you next week.
See you next week.